Hey Mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. I hope you're all well and I hope you're having a great day. In today's video, we're going to be finishing off skinning the door on the other side. So if you didn't see last week's video, go back and watch it. By the end of today, we'll have that door reskinned, fitted back on the car, and then I've just got to do the other side. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll catch you again in a moment. Cheers. Right, so I've decided I'm definitely going with this MPI door on this side now. I think there's enough adjustment and movement to be able to get that door spot on once it's fitted. So the first thing I need to do is repair the frame. So I've just started out by cutting out anywhere where there was rot. I didn't need to cut out that bigger section out the bottom, but to be honest, it's easier to weld one piece than it is to do little bits and bobs like that. It's actually much quicker. So we've got a bit to welding down the bottom there. We've got these corners to do. And then that frame is pretty much ready for the skin to go on. So let's get the welding gear out, get that welded up. So there we go, really pleased with that actually. That's after a bit of cleaning up with the flat wheel. Along the bottom here, it doesn't have to be perfect. That'll get a smear of seam sealer over it anyway. Corners have come out really nicely. I started cleaning up the rest of the frame now. So I think I've got the profiles right. Let me just turn it over. And then, yeah, on the inside, it looks as good as new pretty much. So there's some bits here which I'll treat with a bit of rust treatment, and then we'll be weld through primer and epoxy primer. Just trying to think actually. So there are some bits where we got to weld through. We're probably going to plug weld here on both sides. We got a bit at the top there as well, and we'll do the same on this side beneath the latch down at the bottom. Yeah, so let me get some primer on there, and then the final bit we're going to do, we're going to refit the door, and then we're just going to eye up the skin again. One thing I do need to do as well in a moment is the thread on this hinge. I've had the nuts on and off it so many times, the thread has worn out now, so I need to replace that. It's not too much of a difficult job. Basically just got to cut it off, drill a hole through, put a bolt through the other side, and then weld it in place. Right, so the door and skin are pretty much prepped and ready to go now. It's had epoxy primer all around the frame. Where I'm going to weld through, obviously I've masked it off, so we got weld through primer. It's got a very light smear of seam sealer down the bottom here, just over where the welds were. Although the welds, there were no holes, it was continuous, so just a bit of added protection. And then the skin itself, remember to put on the soundproofing. You can do that later, but it's a bit of a pain with the bar in the way. And I've obviously rubbed back and epoxy primed, or sorry, etched through primed ready where we're going to weld the skin. The rest is held on by folding the skin over. I've got Mark's folding tool to use to fold the skin. That holds it pretty well, to be honest, but like I said, on PL, where it had come loose down that edge, there is some movement there, so I will put a couple of welds down there. And then when the skin actually goes on, we'll tiger seal all around the inner lip here. I mean, tiger seal holds it very, very well anyway. So yeah, the next bit we're going to do, fit the hinges back on, put the door back on, and we're going to now we're going to line it up. We're going to use some pencil marks on there, and then once we're happy, then we're going to weld the tops, and then we'll start folding the edges. Right, well that didn't quite go as smoothly as I wanted, but it's on. You'd have seen, and I learnt from the last time I've done a door skin, you can't just use a skinning tool to bend it over from 90 degrees. You have to tap it over probably about 45 degrees first. Otherwise, all you do is end up damaging the face of the panel. So you need to tap it over to about 45 degrees, then use a skinning tool to finish it off. It takes quite a bit of effort. That it's quite hard work when you're doing a whole skin, but it's all on now. One thing I'd love to know is how you could do it without getting these marks in the panel. It doesn't matter too much because it's at the back, and you could, if you were really fussy, skim some filler over there, but I'll skim a bead of sealer. So we've got a weld up the top there, we've got the weld along that top seam there, we've got a plug weld down the bottom. We've got all our bottom. Now this is where it goes wrong a little bit, but it goes wrong for a good reason I'll explain in a moment. So then at this end we got plug weld there, seam weld there, and we got the seam weld along the top. Down the bottom here you'll notice where I flecked it over, it doesn't actually meet the bottom of the door frame. Now that is because on this side there was a huge great big gap at the bottom here with the original door, and it goes back to when I'd done this sill long time ago. If you remember, it never quite fitted right this side, and I had to slit it, I had to put in a piece of metal, I had to bring it up, and I think part of it is a non-genuine door step. So this door step, these angles are not quite 90 degrees, and it's like it angles down a little bit. The whole lot down this side is probably, it looks like probably just under a 3 or 4 mil lower than where it should be. I don't think it's because of this joint here, because it's perfectly level with the floor pan. But anyway, big gap at the bottom, and part of me fitting the door skin to the frame was so I can get everything lined up a bit better. So we'll put the door back on in a moment and see if that's actually worked. But yeah, what it means is down the bottom here I did actually have a gap where it's folded over, but it's not actually meeting the door frame, so I've just welded along the bottom there. Let me turn it over. And so on the other side, now when I done the doors on Sprout, yeah, when I skinned the doors on Sprout, I still had the problem where you fold the seams, it can, and I've done it on the A panels before, you can damage the outer part. So you'll probably find whenever you use that, whenever you fold a seam, you're probably going to have to DA it off and then go over it, and maybe a very light coat of filler, which is what I'll do with this all the way around the edge. There were some high and low spots, so these high spots are where the welds are. And I did have one high spot where there was probably a little bit of debris between the door skin and the frame underneath, and you could just see it poking up, so be very careful to make sure the frame is perfectly clean. So yeah, we'll weld it up around the top there as well. I mean, it's all bare at the moment. We'll put seam sealer on there, but the first thing we're going to do is refit this door, and fingers crossed the fit is spot on. We'll have a look in a moment. Right then, I think we're just about done. Off video I'll probably seam seal that. You've seen me do it before. It's nothing exciting. First test though. Door shuts, fine. And then what I've done, I've just gone around and I've sprayed some grey primer between both joints. That helps you see what the gap is like. And to be honest, for a first fit, I've done a little bit of fettling. I have one spacer in the top, none in the bottom, so I could still potentially remove or add spacers, but I'm pretty pleased with that gap. It's not the tightest I've seen on a Mini, but it's pretty consistent all the way up. It goes in a bit here. I can work that area a little bit, literally just take the door off and then you just tap that edge in. The things that with panels with folded joints like the A panels here where they're folded over, you can get quite a bit of movement in them. You're either tapping them in to make the gap larger, or if you want to make the gap smaller, tap it and sort of drag it, tap it and drag towards the outside of the panel, and it will actually stretch the panel and close the gap up a bit. So I could do that, but to be honest, I'm pretty pleased with that. The biggest problem I was trying to cure was down the bottom here. Now, I should have done a before and after shot, because before, this panel was probably about 3 mil further up. So there was a huge, great big gap down the bottom here. It was really, really obvious. And now, obviously, like I say, I've I've fitted that skin to the frame. It means that the fold over bit on the bottom didn't join, but if I'd lifted it up to get it to fit the frame, then I'd have had a 2-3 mil bigger gap here, and the coach line along here, which is pretty much lining up, would have been 2 or 3 mil too high. So like I said right at the very beginning of the video, mini doors, getting them right is one of the hardest things in the world. On this side, again, pretty happy with the gap. I've worked this area a bit already. It probably still wants a little bit more work. The gap's a little bit too big up here, but again, by literally, if you want to make the gap smaller, you just, it's kind of like that, but a little bit harder. Make sure you don't hit the other panel, obviously. And then you can work that edge out. You can probably work that edge out by another millimetre there. But again, pretty pleased with the gap there for a first fit. Pretty happy. I've had to work this edge a bit, so we got some bits we need to dress up down here when it comes to finally painting the car. But the door opens and closes. And the gaps are not bad for a Mini at all. So, hope you enjoyed this week's video. Again, another good constructive day out in the garage. I'm a bit sweaty and worn out. That's one door done. I don't think the other side will be as difficult. The other side just fitted better than this side. This side, there was always problems down in this corner here. Problems with the seal, problems with the floor pan, problems with the A panels, problems with the door. And if you remember a long time ago when I first got the car, I thought this side was all damaged, the A panel was all bent and that, and it looks like maybe the wheel had come off and gone up into the arch or something like that. So I don't know what happened on this side, but we're getting it all back to how it should be now. So yeah, I'm going to do a bit more prep on this door now. Not sure what the next video will be. I don't know whether I'll film doing the other skin, because it will be the same as this, only hopefully a little bit easier because the frame's in better condition on the other side. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing. And if you want to drop me a comment, I do read all the comments. I do appreciate your support. And thanks once again for coming back and watching the videos. Have a great week. Catch you again next week.